This is episode number 15 of the Silver Track Extra.
Thanks for tuning in to the Silver Track Extra, your source for the best tips, tricks, and how-tos to dominate the security industry, helping you improve your business, win more contracts, and crush your competition. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
Hello, Silver Track Nation, and welcome to episode number 15 of the Silver Track Extra. My name's Johnny Page. I'm your co-host here on the show, along with Chris Anderson, and today we're going to be going into part 2 of customer retention strategies that work in the security industry. We're going to dive into developing loyal relationships with your customers. If you haven't had a chance to check out part 1 of customer retention strategies that work in the security industry, visit silvertracksoftware.com/12. That's the number 12. That is part 1 of this series. This will be an ongoing series in which we're going to dive into how to really retain your customers. That we know is the key to growth going forward. So without any further ado, let's hear from our sponsors over at Paperless Proposal, and then we'll jump straight in to the featured conversation.
Does your security business need to create business proposals to win clients? Are you frustrated by how much time and resources it takes to create and manage your proposals? If yes, I want to introduce you to Paperless Proposal Software. With Paperless Proposal Software, you can easily create impressive business proposals in minutes, and Paperless Proposal Software allows you to quickly and easily track and manage all of your proposals. Get a free demo at www.paperlessproposal.com/silvertrack.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Customer Retention Strategies That Work in the Security Industry, Part 2. Chris, last week we talked about using a project manager to really help improve communication, making sure that we're always moving or always showing our work to the customer, and really we talked about a lot of the benefits. That was on episode number 12. So if you want to go back and listen to part 1, it was a really great episode. We had a lot of great feedback on that. You can go to silvertracksoftware.com/12. Chris, this week we're going to talk about developing customer loyalty. So Chris, can you give us a little bit of insight as to why customer loyalty is so important, how that kind of ties into customer retention? They're kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, we want to keep our contracts, right?
Yeah.
It's money coming into our business. And if we don't have loyalty, we lose a customer. And we know how important that is.
Yeah, and I think that loyalty really ties in with someone who is going to be an advocate for your services. If you create someone who is loyal, you sort of remove that cloud hanging over your head that this contract could potentially leave. Like when you know that you have a loyal customer, you know that they're with you. You don't have to worry about losing the contract on a moment's notice. You at least have earned the grace over some time. So today we're just going to talk about some of the strategies for creating that loyal relationship. And I think first, Chris, it seems like it would be common sense, but thanking your customers for doing business with you can really go a long way. Taking time to show sincere appreciation for their business can really generate a solid, loyal relationship. So Chris, and I know this isn't in our notes, I kind of want to go off the cuff here a little bit, what did you do differently because everyone does the first 90 days well, right? It kind of goes without saying, but what did you do to make sure that you were still doing a good job 5 years into the contract?
Well, when I had my business, I would usually sit down with the customer and I'd ask them, hey, here's what we needed. Here's what your problems are. Here's what the goals are. And I want to make sure we keep those, obviously make sure we do what we need to do weekly with you. So I tried to put a schedule together to where I could follow up with them weekly, whether it was weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. But what day could I actually make a phone call to get in contact with them to check on service?
Yeah, so I think a big part of that, and one of the items we have here in our list on developing that loyalty with a customer, is making sure that you take the time to listen. Find out what's going on, even if it is outside of your scope of service. When you talk about developing loyalty with a customer, it's more than just a business relationship. After all, we're all humans, right? It goes into developing a personal relationship with them, taking an interest in their business, which is another point that we had talked about, Chris, was showing interest in their business. Become a supporter of what they do. So if this is a property management company, a commercial property, finding ways that what are some of the business problems that they're addressing right now, or what are some ways that you can help contribute to their overall success, whether it's looking for additional tenants or just supporting the customers in their shopping center or whatever it could be. There's a lot of small things you can do, but just taking an interest in their business and in them as a professional.
Yeah, and I would, not just send an email or a phone call, but maybe we buy them lunch once in a while, right? Say, hey, we were thinking about you guys, really appreciate your business. Thought it'd be nice maybe to buy your group lunch, and we're going to cater it in. And, if we do that every quarter or every other quarter, it worked out really nice for us. It's just that, we care about you and thank you for the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that we have talked about and that I have seen absolutely play into creating loyal relationships is making sure that you're making realistic promises. The number one way to hinder your customers' loyalty is by over promising and then falling short, especially if you're doing this on a consistent basis. So this goes back to a lot of why we recommended using a project management tool, but making sure that the communication is clear so that you're not over delivering or making unrealistic promises, because you really just set yourself up for failure. And you would rather set a prolonged timeline on some of these items and be able to successfully deliver it than set an aggressive timeline and fall short, because it's just so much more damaging to the relationship.
And I would always set the parameter. I always tell the customer, you always have my ear, you have my email, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up with a customer success manager, and he will report to you weekly or biweekly. We can put those calendars or that schedule together. We don't want to harass you, but I want to make sure that everything's getting done that you're requesting.
That's something that we've implemented at SilverTrak, you and I have together, and it's gone a long ways in terms of seeing our customers really reach new levels of success. Is that making sure that we're following up with them even when they're quiet? Because Chris, that doesn't always mean that everything is okay. We don't. As people, we don't always take the initiative. If it's not the most important problem for us, we may let our problem simmer over time, and then all of a sudden it blows up, or you lose a customer and you're like, what? I didn't hear anything from you over 6 months. How did things get like this? And if we just don't take the time to check in with them, we really risk losing not only a customer, but we're not furthering that loyal relationship.
And when I kept the relationship with that customer, I could simply just send a real quick email. Hey, hope you had a great weekend. Just doing a quick follow-up. And it takes 2 seconds to do, right? And I didn't have to get into writing a long email. It was very simple to do, and I get a quick response. And they knew that was just my way of checking in, make sure things are okay. And if they needed something, they could call or respond then, and we would get it done.
Yeah, a cool way that I think that we can, in the security industry, really develop some loyal relationships is celebrating mutual wins. So when you get together, there's going to be some reasons why they hire you. Like most of the time they're hiring you to solve a problem, right? Whether this is like just keeping the activity at night on the property to a minimum, or addressing some specific issues. Either way, there's going to be some goals involved. There's going to be a desired outcome from the customer. And when you're reaching that, even if it is like that we're maintaining a safe property, celebrate some wins. At the 6-month mark, point it out saying, hey, guess what? It's been 6 months since we've had any vandalism. We just want to call and celebrate this with you. Like, this is awesome. This is done in partnership with you guys. You've put us in a great position to succeed. And celebrating those wins together, because you start to develop that camaraderie and the partnership that we're really all looking for.
Especially when you have reports to prove that. But one thing I wanted to bring up too, sometimes we fall, right? Sometimes we make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And the clients look at that as far as how fast are you going to respond, what you did to correct it, right? That itself can be a win, because clients do like to see, hey, you know what? You guys have a great track record, but when you do fall, you step back up and you get it done. And the communication is great. We love that. So there's some wins in making mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, everyone's going to be there when things are going well. Not everyone's going to be there when things go wrong, right? You can really, if you just step up and say, hey, you know what? Unfortunately, the officer on site took advantage of the situation. We had the necessary processes in place, but whatever it may be, because sometimes it just, things happen. But if you just step up and be completely transparent, honest, explaining how things work, explain how you're going to correct the situation, show that it is very important to you. Sometimes, right, Chris, a loss or what would seem like a big mistake can actually end up being a win and furthering. And that's true in regular relationships, right? Like when you have an argument with your friends or your wife and then you kind of come together over resolution, it always seems to feel like you got a little bit closer, even though the waters were a little rough there for a little bit.
Yeah, if I was to handle my personal relationship like I did with my business, I probably would have been married for a lot longer. The first time, really, But, it's what we talk about, give customers more than what they expect, right? Same thing applies. Pay attention to the obvious issues or the problems, whether you need to do it weekly or bi-weekly. Or have a supervisor there to check in with the customer if you can't, and then you make those realistic promises. If you're making promises, you better keep them, right, and fall within the guidelines. And then share whatever you're doing with the client that you just brought up earlier. It's important. If you got some wins, great. If you have some negatives, maybe a guard didn't show up on time, don't wait for your client to call you and tell you or remind you, did you know your guard was gone? You should be calling them up to let them know that, hey, I'm aware of the situation, and let them know. That's a great way of showing, credibility, being honest, all that, ethics, and that's a win.
Great point, Chris. Absolutely. Well, it sounds like, and you may be thinking, a lot of what we shared today seems like common sense, and it really is. So a lot of times we'll have this tendency to separate what we would be doing in our personal life to what we're doing in business. We tend to overcomplicate things, and it's really not. Just treat people like people and do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, and you'll find that this really gets the loyalty over time. If you do this on a consistent basis, if you're authentic and you're real, you really start to develop loyal relationships with your customer. Well, as we wrap up today, Chris, I want to give our customers a couple of tools that they can take home or that they can put in place to help generate these loyal relationships. So you can visit silvertracksoftware.com/15 to see a article written up on this specific podcast. And these normally go a little bit more in depth than what we cover here on the show. So visit silvertracksoftware.com/15. Also, show our sponsors some love over at Paperless Proposal. They really have a lot of amazing things going on over there. So visit paperlessproposal.com/silvertrack. And until next time, I'm Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
And we'll talk to you soon.
This has been another episode of the SilverTrack Extra. For more insider information, visit silvertracksoftware.com/extra. Listen on the go by subscribing in iTunes. Want to hear your questions answered on the show? Visit silvertracksoftware.com/questions to submit your requests.